This is TWiT. I want to introduce an old friend, Harper Reed. He's a technologist, entrepreneur, and hacker. Hello, Harper.
Hello. Happy to be back.
It's great to have you. I've known Harper for ages. I think we first met in Canada, actually, when I was doing a show up there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. You may know the name. He was the CTO of the Obama campaign in 2012. He sold his e-commerce startup to PayPal. Well, was it Braintree first and then Braintree sold to PayPal, or?
Oh, we were after Braintree sold to PayPal. So we sold to PayPal and then lived inside of Braintree.
Which is a good place to live.
Was the mafia all gone by the time you got there?
Yes, thankfully.
This was years. This wasn't so long ago. The mafia was long gone. Yeah. Harper, what are you doing these days? It looks like a little code workshop you got going on up there.
Well, we recently founded a new company, raised a little bit of money, and we're building what I like to kind of describe as super clippy or mega clippy. The
AI-based?
AI-based, we are building, agents that are personified and a little bit unhinged, and will do some work for you and help you out and live on your computer and maybe talk shit. We don't know yet.
It's interesting that a lot of people think that is a kind of bad use of AI.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. But I trust your judgment. I mean, I don't think you would waste your time on something that was a bad use of AI.
I don't know if we know what the right uses of
Maybe
AI are.
Right.
I just read a really great blog post. I just found this out of kind of nowhere from Hacker News, which is called the AI Horseless Carriages, which is just about how bad the Gmail AI is. And I think there's a real opportunity for people to, instead of taking AI and shoehorning it into a service that already exists or a product that already exists, is to think, what should this product look like with these new automations? And the author has this perfect quotation. Let me see if I can quickly find it, where he was like, it's a word, they were like, I don't know their gender, but it's a world of where I don't have to spend time doing mundane work because the agents do it for me. Like this idea of like, why have the computers, like, I guess I totally messed up the quote. I just, no idea what it is. Anyway, read it, it's great.
I have it right here. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's Pete Koomen's, Koomen's blog, AI Horseless Carriages. We're in that early stage, aren't we? Where we don't know what it's going to be. You came to my attention because, of course, I follow you in many different places, but I saw your blog post about using AI to code. Now, you're not a vibe coder, are you?
I mean, I've been a vibe coder since I was about 5 years old, and I learned BASIC, man. I definitely am I'm the type of guy where I'm like, man, that was a stressful day at work. Let me pull up some Python to relax.
Yeah.
Like coding has been about vibe since I was a child. But I do think there is both a positive aspect to the kind of quote-unquote vibe coding that we talk about today and some negative aspects. But I do think that the concept really brings up some complicated points of view. One of them is just simply that maybe code quality doesn't matter as much as it used to, which is a very bizarre point of view for someone who has made their career as having good code quality.
That's kind of the import of AI entirely, is nothing needs to be perfect anymore.
Well, it's even more. I stumbled across this kind of nuance that I was acting upon, which was I would never have AI write a blog post, but I have no issue with AI writing my code. Mm-hmm. And I want to be very careful in my language that I'm putting out to the world, but I'm not careful in the code of the apps that I'm putting out in the world. And kind of what does that mean? And I think it's because with the code, I'm able to set up testing infrastructure, verification tools, et cetera, to test to make sure that it works and to make sure that it's quality. And I can scan it and do analysis. And there's all these tools that have been around for dozens of years, 20s of years, that will solve that problem. Whereas writing, all the AI writing seems to sound a little bit the same to me. much like all the images seem to a little bit the same. And there's obviously people who are very good at prompting these things, so it sounds much better. But I've just found that when I read, if I'm like, I'm going to do a blog post about AI and I'm going to use AI to write it, I'm like, this doesn't sound like me. First of all, it has capitals and it's misspelled, or it's spelled correctly, and it uses real grammar.
Punctuation and things.
Punctuation,
I know.
I mean, it's like, what is a period?
The M dash. Oh my God.
Hey, don't come for the M dash.
I'm an M dash machine, man. I put M dashes like between every word.
We all agreed that that's a bad test of AI.
I use M dashes so often. I often have to rewrite sentences because I'm like, there's a 3 M dashes, like sentences right after each other. I gotta throw a parenthetical.
I gotta put a semicolon in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So you write, in fact, in your most recent blog post at harper.blog, I find that I want my voice to be heard and not normalized, whereas my code needs to be normalized. What in this context, what do you mean normalized?
Well, I think like if you're working with a giant team of engineers, the goal is to have a consistent quality output. Like that's just, you don't want someone who is really good and someone who's really bad. You want to like normalize that much, or like a compression algorithm, so to speak. You want to take
sometimes that 10% coder is not the ideal person on your team because he's so far ahead of everybody else. Nobody understands what the code's doing. And he can document it, but that doesn't mean that it's a different level. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's not. It's like it's such an interesting problem because we all think about that. We want to find the 10x person, or we want to find the person that's going to focus on this 100%. And what I've noticed is, oftentimes they're just not great to work with. but there's a thing is, I remember very specifically on the Obama campaign, there were a few things we had to do that required that person. And so I think those people end up being much more mercenary than they actually want to be, because they're just such a individual worker that they're not working with a team. With that said, working with a team that's really running, everyone will make everyone go faster, but only if you can achieve that consistency. Whereas writing for me is very much about my individual expression. Like I would rather tweet stupid shit than have an AI tweet something that's very consistent. Like I don't think the consistency in my personal expression is really what I'm looking for, other than I want to wear black every day. Right? But that's simple, and I don't have the AI doing that.
It makes sense because when you're coding, what you're doing is you're kind of translating human requests into something the machine will understand. Well, what better to do that than a machine? Right? I mean, I can understand that machines should be able to code. It's their language.
I think that's true, but I actually think it's much more confusing because I think that's actually how it used to be, is we used to tell the machine in its language how to do it, which is like a Python to, like
assembly language or something.
Yeah, eventually or whatever. Or like you take, you write Rust or Go and it compiles to a binary, whatever, all that stuff. What's happening now is we have this layer in between it that is the language model, which is like taking English. That's weird. Like it's weird. Like we were doing this thing earlier on, and one of the people I work with was yelling at the computer. No, don't go to Twitter. Like we're yelling. We're like, what are you doing, computer? Come on! Like I'm walking here. Like it's like this funny thing of like why is it doing this? And you really are like, why would you do that? Like we talk all the time about like, I tried to get it to do this and it wouldn't do it. It's like we're talking about a teenager, but it is like that, because if you think about, you look at the good prompting guides, they have this funny thing. It's like talking to a 12-year-old about taking responsibility for homework or solving a problem. You're like, well, let's make a plan. Like think step by step, take a deep breath, like all these things when you add them to the prompt, make the prompts better. And it really cracks me up that we're at that point in computing. And I would never have predicted this. In all my years as like a Java programmer and like a CTO and all that shit, I would never have predicted that I would be coercing
the machine into cooperating.
It's like a really angry, unfed 12-year-old who's just like, I don't want to do my homework. And you're like, okay, bro.
Okay.
So what would you advise 12-year-old Harper given the current reality?
Probably move out of the U.S.
Well, there's that.
Not the current reality.
Maybe learn how to shoot a gun. I don't know. We'll see.
We're talking about the coding reality.
The AI reality.
I think that's actually a really complicated problem, because what I'm seeing a lot of folks who are in engineering management. Like, so people who are like me in my 40s, had a career programming, and the people we're potentially hiring are cutting their teeth on this stuff. This is where they're learning. Mm-hmm. And those two things is I wouldn't say it's so far as a Kuhnian paradigm shift, but it's close to that kind of idea where we're using language that is not compatible and not collaborative with one another. So when I say, yeah, just go ahead and code that up, first thing they might do is go to ChatGPT, go to Claude, start interacting with it, start doing some planning. Whereas if you told someone who had been programming for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, or whatever, that's not the first thing they do. I'm not mad about that. I think it's really hard. But for those of us who were around in the early 2000s and the late 90s, I think this is going to start to sound very comfortable and horrifying, which is I think we're back to waterfall. I think
waterfall is what Agile replaced.
Yeah.
How would you describe it? You start and you start at the beginning and you get to the end, and you kind of it's a waterfall of code.
Well, it's a funny thing, right? Because I remember very clearly, I got a job in 2001 as a Java programmer. I worked with this great team that was at Tata Infotech at the time. We'd taken the project from IBM Global Services. These are all dinosaurs from the past, right? And I had this team. I was the only engineer in the U.S. I had a team of like 4 or 5 people around Chicago. We were all in our 20s. We all went to bars and all that stuff and had a lot of fun, and it was great. But when we weren't doing that, we were coding this app. And so we had a guy named Vinay who would build the spec, and he was the spec guy. He knew everything about the product. He talked to all the business owners. He talked to all the stakeholders, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting to get the spec. And then after like 6 months, he would be like, the spec's done. And it was like this big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like, we did it. Everyone, let's have a party. The spec's done. And so you'd have the spec, and it'd be like thousands of pages, not really, probably hundreds of pages. And we would all look through it and we'd make comments and like, the spec's done. So then he'd pass it like over this kind of firewall to the engineers where we just had to do what was said in the spec. There was no like choice. It was like, oh, this is what you have to do. You have to achieve this thing. And then once you were done, 8 months later, you'd be like, we're done. We finished the product.
Forever.
It's
It's done forever.
Yeah.
Then we bring it back to the stakeholders and they'd be like, this isn't what we wanted at all.
It's a game of telephone.
It's a game of telephone. And so, but that process, and this is the thing that I'm really reflecting on right now, is to do well with LLM code gen and to really work well in this space, you have to think about what the spec is for such a long time and so carefully and so strategically. You spend a lot of time working on requirements, trying to define what are you trying to build. Unlike in 2001, it takes 15 minutes. Right, like it's not like this is a long time, and then you pop it over to like Claude, or I use Claude Code for instance. Claude Code, you just dump it in there. You're like, yo, Claude Code, get this done for me, and it's just like blah, 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 does its little magic and says some weird puns, and then it's like I'm done. And you're like, then you check it, and you're like, you have the same result. That's not what I wanted at all. And then you just go back and do it. And so it's the same process in many ways. I wish I was still working with Vinay. It was really fun to work with Vinay. He would be great at this. But it was like this thing of like defining that spec, moving forward, building and building and building, and then going back and make sure it matches the spec and so on and so forth.
It's iterative, but the iterations are much faster now.
And
is that right?
A lot, I think so. And I think if you're very successful, most of the people I've talked to that are doing well with this seem to be adding a lot more context, a lot more writing
to their prompt,
more just to everything. So you'll have a doc in your product that might just be like features for today, and you just go through and define all of these features for today in like very great detail, and then the LLM will go through, and because it has so much context, it can actually successfully do that. I think one of the missteps with people who are just starting out is they don't add enough context. And so like I remember when I started out, it was just like code. You're just shouting at the computer. You're like, I can shout at the computer. This is great. You're just like, code, make the feature go. And then it's just like, okay, and it just does something. And you're like, this is terrible. And it's because you didn't give it enough information. But once you just slam it full of information, it does a pretty good job.
Or once you see the internet, so I was there to start at the start of Epicurious for Condé Nast. Many years ago, and I watched this cultural conflict. The engineers, we hired an engineering company, and they said, okay, give us a spec for every single page you're ever going to have. And the editors said, no, just start making pages. We'll know when we see it.
Yeah.
And now you can, and each was right and wrong in its own way, but now you can do that. You can know it when you see it.
I do a lot of that with V0. From Vercel, which is a really fun product where I just go to it and I'll just like type. This will be like if I'm, you're on that call where you're kind of zoning out, you're just kind of paying attention. You're just it's just a checkbox, your presence. You're not participating. There, I'll just be like, fuck it. Let's make a video game that's like R-Type from the 90s Neo Geo, but I want it to be frogs fighting pizzas. And it's just some like asinine prompt. And then I just sit there and I wait like 3 minutes, and I'm like, oh, look at that. There's that game I wanted. I always wanted the fight a pizza or whatever. And like, I just do this over and over again.
But that's kind of trivial, right? I mean, by the way, here's V0. What can I help you ship? And then you write in the prompt, and they have some examples of what people have done. But Harper, one of the criticisms of this is, well, it can do that because it's writing, like Flappy Bird's been written 1,000 times. It's seen all that code. So it's writing something it already, has in the LLM. It knows. So can it do original things?
Well, I'll quote a movie, Life of Brian. We are all individuals. I actually don't think there's that much unique stuff out there. Like if you're thinking about what are we going to solve, like let's build social software. There's so much social software built, successful and otherwise, documented and otherwise, that I think it's going to do a pretty good job at a lot of that stuff.
Right.
That doesn't mean that a team of very experienced people with a lot of engineering experience aren't going to do better than a team of just neophytes who've never done anything. But there's still a lot of luck. You could build most of the things that my career has been defined by, I think you could build with 1 or 2 people in like a couple days.
Using AI.
Using AI. That doesn't mean it has the customers. It doesn't mean it has the growth. It doesn't mean it has the vibe or the experience or the like feel of it. You still have to be good. One of my friends, an investor who's backed us a couple times, James Cham from Bloomberg Beta, said early on, like, this is a time of curation. This is a time of having, like, just because you can build an Instagram clone doesn't mean that you're going to build the next Instagram.
Right.
Just because you can build something doesn't mean it's going to be cool, feel good, people are going to love it, etc. You still have to be good at that, which means just because you can prompt it and say, I want to make a video game that is a combination of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and, some Chicago pizza company, like that doesn't mean that anyone is going to play it or care or what have you. But this is very similar to what it was like before, and I think it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's good for an MVP, a minimal viable product. But you still have. But I've always said this with anything the AI does. Human input is critical to making it useful.
I also think that we could take some AI. We could go to Descript or whatever, pop it into Descript, and we could replace AI with human engineers, and the same conversation applies.
It would be the same thing.
It's the same thing, which is like humans.
So is the AI the equivalent of a junior engineer then? What is the AI?
I just treat it like a collaborator. I don't know how to say that word. I was trying to say that word the other day, and I literally
a collaborator.
A collaborator. That's how you say it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've wondered how to say that for years.
That's by the way what I do is tell people how to say things. That's my entire.
Good.
That's my whole thing. That's the gig.
I used to think it was like an intern, where you'd have this intern from some very fancy school and you'd bring them on and they knew everything. They were obnoxious. Yeah. They knew everything, but they literally knew nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah. We've all worked with those people where you can ask them any fact and they're going to tell you with authority what it is. But then if you ask them, like, how much does a banana cost? Is the question.
No idea.
They're going to be like, I don't know. What do you mean?
What's a banana?
You buy a banana? So like these type of things. Yeah. Money.
They're savants in a way. They're idiot savants kind of. These AIs.
Well, yes, but one thing that I learned from Ethan Mollick, who I highly recommend reading, was oftentimes, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't think he actually said this, but oftentimes when you find yourself stuck or the AI isn't doing this well, whatever it might be, that's a prompt problem. That's not a capabilities problem. And so I don't know if that's true. I don't actually care if it's true, but I practice that, where if I'm talking to Claude or ChatGPT and it's not giving me the example or the results I want, then I'll be like, okay, this is a me issue. I'll iterate much like I would on code or what have you to try and get to the right end. And usually 2 things will happen. One, I'll get there, or I'll just get distracted and start generating images of my friends doing asinine things.
Which is basically time wasted, or maybe not. Maybe that's a good thing.
Leo, I think that life is too short to be worried about that. I mean, it's fun. I laugh and I'm gonna walk outside and he get hit by a meteorite or something, and I'm gonna be very happy that I generated a pancake logo for my friend Clint.
One of the things Ethan Mollick's doing that's interesting, Jeff, you're probably familiar with it, is Wharton Interactive. He teaches at Wharton. And the idea of using games and AI as a kind of a useful tool in education, I think is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I kind of want some best practices from you then, if we can, Harper, because you've written 2 really good pieces on how you use AI as a kind of partner coding. Yeah. Is that a fair way to talk about it?
Yeah. I think this is a really good and important topic, because what I'm finding is a lot of folks are just trying to figure out how to effectively start. And
well, you say step one, get out of bed with wonder and optimism.
Yeah, which I think is bullshit. I don't think anyone actually does that. Let's be real. It's hard out here. It's hard out here for us AI programmers. I even say that. I even say who am I kidding? But I think the first thing is this is the reason I put that in there is because the first thing is, if you're starting out with the assumption that it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
That's a good point.
Like if you just start out and say this is a bunch of shit and it only generates shit and it's all terrible, et cetera, which I hear all the time from friends, then you're never going to have any success. Like that's just, you're starting out from a point it's not about good intentions or not. I don't really care. It's mostly just about like, you have to assume that something good will happen for a good thing to happen. And otherwise you're just going to be, because you have to prompt it like it's going to work. And like,
so the AI knows whether you believe in it or not. You gotta believe.
That's the vibe. That's the vibe, Leo.
That's
what
the
we're
vibe
talking about with the vibe. Yeah. It's also it starts to get religious at some point, and then we've all moved to San Francisco and talk about AGI. But I think the key that I have found is that I think there is a continuum, and on one side it starts with like autocomplete, and IntelliSense has been around for forever.
Yeah.
You have all these really cool
coders are used to that notion.
Yeah, and that's a normal thing. And so you start there, and then you just get asking more and more, and then you start pasting code in and out of ChatGPT and Claude. And I think it's actually important to follow these steps, because I think what happens if you go to the end, you don't have the nuance and the practice to prompt it appropriately, and so you end up making mistakes that are just incredibly frustrating, and then your response will be, this doesn't work, it's all bullshit.
So the first step is really dialoguing with the AI to understand better what it can do, what it needs to do what you want it to do. There's a certain amount of training that's involved of you as much as the AI, yeah?
Yeah, and one of the things I think is really hard about this is it's just fucking weird. Excuse me.
It is weird. It's alien.
Super weird. And
it's
it
alien.
Doesn't make any sense. And you're also like, I am a very good programmer of Python. Why am I literally yelling at a computer? Why am I talking to a computer, and why is this happening?
You have to get over that, don't you? You really do. I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
You have to get over that embarrassment of, I'm talking to a computer.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have taken Waymos, but like I have this problem with Waymos, which is very similar, which I'm done with the ride and I get out and I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I tip? What do I?
Yeah, so it's this thing of like our whole lives have been spent to find this way to like coerce the network around us of people, and now we're trying to find the delta between how to do that with a robot and not, and I think it's very, very difficult. But where the vibes coding kind of comes in is as you start upgrading down this path, and you start doing more automation of your code base, there's a certain point where you're just kind of letting go and just kind of seeing what happens. And I think that is very uncomfortable for a very specific type of person who likes control.
But you're not going to ship this code.
Why not?
Oh, you are?
Yeah, every day I'm shipping this code. Well, the thing, I was talking to a friend of mine.
Scared.
Who's a very talented programmer, and he was like, yeah, but it's not production quality. And I'm like, what is production quality?
Right.
My entire life I've programmed computers. A lot of code has gotten to production. There was a certain point where I kind of graduated and I wasn't allowed to put code into production. But there is a thing of like, what does it look like? Every time I've entered a company and looked at the code, the first reaction is you're just like, oh God, this is horrible. Like no one has looked at production code and Like, this is perfect.
True.
This is wonderful. There's always this visceral reaction of there's a lot of bubblegum and a lot of baling wire. And so, like, I don't think that human production code is much different than AI production code, except we can promise that AI production code is going to be normalized so much. Now, the best practice may not be your best practice, but it will be a best practice.
So let me ask you a question there, because I'm not a programmer, but I've worked with many. And whenever you try to say, you get somebody new in, and you say, oh, well, this was already done, but can you revise it? They want to just throw it all out and redo it completely.
Yeah.
Right? Law of nature. How is AI at revising code that somebody else did?
It's actually really funny. There's two answers to that. One, we don't know. And that's the, like, just adding and editing to, like, big code bases. We just don't know yet. Like, we don't know. Most of the people who are doing code gen stuff right now are doing greenfield work on greenfield things, and they're having a lot of success on that. But the question I get most from my friends who are in engineering management positions is, I have a code base with hundreds of thousands of lines of code, if not millions of lines of code. I need to add this feature or fix this feature. How is it going to do with that? And some people are doing it. There just isn't a lot of people testing it. I'm on my way to try and generate a lot of code, so I'll let you know in a couple years or whatever, but we're not there yet. But the second one is, in some cases, it's easier to just have the AI redo the whole thing.
It's so fast.
Well, just like coders have always said too.
So
but it's faster than coders.
Here's an example that blew my mind. I was talking to this good friend of mine who has this wonderful company, and he was showing me this code base he had, and he had 250 pull requests. And I was like, this is a mess. Why do you have so many pull requests? And he was just like, oh, it's cool. So he showed me each pull request an AI had done. If the tests passed, he would examine it and just take a look, a high-level look, and probably merge it. If the test failed, he closed the pull request without even taking a look at it.
It's cheap.
Was cheap. It's cheap from a time perspective.
Throw it away.
And from a cost. He's like, we'll just redo it. Why wouldn't we just
throw it
redo
away?
The whole thing? And so Jeff, to answer your question, there's a chance that, this is why I said, like, code quality may not matter. There's a chance that the fact that we worshipped this code, we were like, it's done. Remember back in CD time, Goldmaster, we did it. Let's ship it. Like, you know, like that
shrink wrap.
Shrink wrap. Like, we don't need that anymore. If we build an iOS app and it sucks, we just build another one tomorrow. If that sucked, we build another one tomorrow. And
it really is a new way of. It's a totally new way of thinking about this stuff. It's
very strange.
So. Okay, so we've gone through. I've using IntelliSense. Now I'm using Copilot. It's basically kind of auto completion on steroids.
Yeah, super IntelliSense.
And then I'm pasting code into Claude or ChatGPT and.
Yeah, you're still using your brain here. Like, so here you're still kind of thinking through your brain, trying to figure out what's going on. You're doing the planning yourself. And what you're finding is you're like, this is really awesome, but I wish I could do more. And you look over at your friend, and your friend's like playing video games while his computer's coding for them. And they're just like, wow, how did you do that? And so then you start to think about, like, Aider or Klein or OpenAI just released Codex or whatever these things are, which is these terminal applications that you can run, hook them to an LLM, and they just kind of do stuff in the background. And it's fun to have them do stuff in the background because you really can just do other things.
What are they doing? They're writing, like, are you giving them tasks and they're doing that in the background?
Yeah, so I'll just tell you my workfo, just because at this point, if you're in the agentic workflow part, this is like where I've been playing along with it. My team has been doing the same workflow. So kind of what you do is you go to like a ChatGPT or some place where your favorite LLM. I use ChatGPT for this because I really like their O1 Pro model, which is their expensive model. It's very nice.
Point out in your blog post though that's kind of a personal thing. You might you just like one better than the other.
You might like Llama that run locally, like whatever, you know. It doesn't really matter because this process, what you're doing is building context. So I'll go there. I did that earlier today. I got into the office around 8:45, 9 o'clock. I spent 8:45 to about 9:15 talking to the LLM, being like, hey, I want to build this thing. Here's my idea. And this is my favorite prompt. And I do this for all my prompts now. I say, ask me one question at a time. I prefer yes or no questions.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, look at that. And so what it will do is, I love that. This is my favorite. Everyone hates this thing, but I think it's the best in the world. I think it's so good. I will never turn it off.
That's AI, by the way.
What I'll do is the yes or no question thing is really great because it allows you to dive deep into these things without an overwhelming experience with the LLM. So it'll just be like, hey, do you want people to log in with Google? Yes. they'll be like, oh, do you want people to log in with an email? Yes. So it goes through, and as you're doing this, it's just building up more context about what you want to build. Then once you feel like you have enough context injected into the machine, then you say, write a spec for me. And that's when I'll switch it to O1 Pro, and it will generate this very well thought out spec that then I can tweak and edit and make whatever I want into it. And then I'll say to that spec, I'll say, hey, can you go ahead and turn this into prompts? Once again, I'm still within the O1 Pro context. We turn this into prompts that I can pass to a code gen. So then I'll save the spec and then this new prompt plan, so to speak, into a directory. And then I will go to Claude Code in a terminal, and I will say, Claude, look at the spec. Here's the plan. Just do it. And I'll go and leave. And then I'll come back and it'll be done. And that's largely, there's a little bit of poking and prodding, and it's asking questions. But that's largely what I do. And with this, I think you can ship kind of anything. I think the limit is your patience for dealing with a bunch of nonsense that this thing is going to pop up. But having worked with software teams for most of my life, it's the same nonsense. People are more fun. This is boring. But that's why you just surround yourself with people doing the same work. So you still get the fun, but then you don't have to talk about code.
All right, I'm going to be the old timer, the gruff old timer who thinks this is all hogwash, and ask you a few questions. How do I debug something that some machine wrote that I don't even maybe understand how it works?
Someone told me a way to do this that I really, really like, which is you do what they call checkpointing. And so this is like in a video game where you have a save point, right? You're going through the video game, you pass that little flag, and now it's saved. And if you mess up your game, you just go back to that point. So that's kind of what you do. So you just don't debug. You just redo it until it works. So it's this funny thing, kind of back to the code is really cheap. Now, this is where
you use tests to do this?
Oh man, so many tests. I've had more tests in the last year than I've had my entire life.
Does the AI write the tests, or do you?
Yeah, I write the tests, but I'll do a lot of passes where I'll take the entire code base, jam it into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and I'll say, where are my missing tests?
Oh, I love that.
And then I'll have it build those tests, and I'll do it again.
Is it pretty reliable when you do that?
Yeah, of course it's missing. Tests are horrible because there's always going to be one that you didn't think
humans are very bad at tests.
Terrible. Humans are very bad at tests. The machines are very good at it. And so I have a couple projects that we've been working on that are Rust that have like 100% test coverage. Every line of code is tested. Now, some of this is really stupid because you're like, why do I need to test this line of code?
But it's cheap.
It's cheap. I mean, now it's not the time of running the test isn't cheap. That's forever.
Right.
But it is cheap to get there. And then once you get there, you're like, oh, great, I have all this tests. Yeah, it's great. And then you save it, and you basically save it, and then you have it go do stuff. And if it messes up, you're like, try again, clear the context, reset back to the test to checkpoint, and do it again. Once the agent started running the tests, that's really when everything changed.
Wow. Now you're using Aider. You like to do this on the command line as opposed to in VS Code or something. I mean,
I've always been a terminal person.
Yeah.
I mean, I started running Linux in '93. Back when you still had telephones, and I think that there's a thing about that I will always be most comfortable in that space. But I have many friends who've used Windsurf and Cursor and all these other things that really like that vibe. That's just not my happy space, and like when someone was like, "This is vibe coding," I was just like, "I'm in, man. Let's burn some incense. let's dress comfortably. Like use what tools are comfortable for you." I am not worried about what I used to be worried about. It used to be like, let's make sure the whole team is using a consistent tool set. Let's make sure everyone is programming in the same language, so on and so forth. But if we hired someone to do a project and they're like, we're going to do it in PHP or Haskell or whatever, and we thought we could host it and we could do it well, then I'm not worried about that, because honestly, they're just being Vinay, making sure the spec works, making sure that everything is tight, making sure the requirements document is up to speed, and then the computer's doing the code. So I think this is it's very bizarre. I'm very uncomfortable with this, to be very clear, and I'm not quite sure where it falls out. But I would say right now, 80% of our code is being generated by AI.
Who's us? Who?
I have a small company called 2389, which is 2389.ai, and we're building some very strange things, and it's all AI generated.
I love it. So there's a famous comment in some old code that says, "You are not expected to understand this."
Yes. That's how I feel every day.
Yeah. Don't change it. I understand it. I wrote it, but you're not expected to understand it. Don't change it. It's a very famous comment. But that bothers people when, at least it used to, I don't understand this code. Do you always understand what the AI code is doing?
No, I never understand. I barely understand it right now. Like, here's what happens, and it's very funny. So I said this before, and someone got kind of mad at me. I don't think that humans' context window is as big as some of these AIs.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know, like I just don't have.
I think that's exactly right.
I just don't have as much space in my head as I thought I had. Like I used to think I could hold the entire idea of it, and I can think of the spec and all that stuff. But when you start looking at all this code, there's a point where I'm like, and I can feel it. I'm like, I've lost control. Like I was going, I was totally under control, and then I lost control, and I'll just be like, well, there it goes. I no longer am able to understand it. But there's another thing that I always remember, which is I can just ask. I can just be like, hey, Claude, what's going on? What's happening? Why is this? What does this file do? What does this part do? Because unlike that comment of the past, the person that wrote that probably was not very fun to work with.
No.
Probably was kind of a curmudgeon.
Kind of snotty. Yeah.
Snotty, didn't trust you, wouldn't want to work with you, probably thought you weren't good enough. AI doesn't care. It'll be like, oh, that's a great question, Harper. I was waiting for you to ask that. Here's what that what that does.
I have found AI to be very good at explaining code, actually. You're right.
Yeah. So I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about, though, is getting to the point where you are supporting a product that you truly have no idea how it works.
That's a little scary.
I think what's going to happen is much like when Agile came out, much like when when mobile came out, you start to get new tooling. And so what we haven't seen yet is what does the tooling look like? I mean, we're starting to see some of the dev tools, et cetera, but I mean, like, what is the tooling that is going to support the engineers, the engineering teams, the founders, etc. And I think for an example, a good example would be formal verification. So if you're using like a Rust or some of these compiled languages, you can formally verify that it does what it does. And I think that's something that people are going to start relying on so that they can prove that the code that the AI wrote, even though it hasn't had human eyes on it, kind of does what it says it does. Now, I know that as saying this, this is a little sacrilegious too. Sacrilegious, I don't know how to say that word either. But this is, I guess, this is bad. Like most of my engineering manager friends are going to die. Like they're all going to say, Harper, what are you doing? You're no longer allowed to come to the party. And I don't know what to say. Like I think this is the future, and I think it's unfortunate that this is where we're at because it's just, I don't think we're going back, and I think that's scary.
I thought maybe I had decoded the name of 2389 Research.
Yeah, you'd never guess what it is. It's really
well. I thought I had because
one thought is that you said 30% of your company is now AI. That's 716 of 20.
It's actually really boring. It's just our birthday months ascending.
Oh,
well, when you start a company, you've no.
Wait, what did you think it was, Leo?
Well, the line number of the code comment, you are not expected to understand this, is something like 2389.
If that's it, I'll just change it. What we were telling people is our favorite parts of pi.
Oh, that's good too. And then now you just have to figure out where that is. Yeah.
Well, it's a really good part. It's right around.
It's the middle of pi.
It's
halfway to the end.
Halfway to the end. Yeah, exactly.
The blog posts at harper.blog, there's a new one. The original one, this is the new one, LLM CodeGen's Hero's Journey. The one I read that actually prompted me to call you was my LLM CodeGen workflow at the moment. And it's really good. And it really is a great place to start if you're thinking about playing around in this. And I think the fact that you've done this so much now, Harper, is actually encouraging. Because you're a smart guy and you're not, I don't think you would be advocating this if there were serious issues with it.
Oh, I think I would.
You would? Okay.
Well, I mean,
never mind.
He wants to clarify that he's.
I'm sorry I trusted narrator. You. Forget it.
No. I think the problem here is that we really don't know how this is going to end.
That's true.
And what I mean by that is I mean this very specific thing that I'm sure like y'all, I have a lot of friends who've been laid off from tech jobs over the last two years.
Yeah.
A lot recently. And I don't think they're getting jobs again. Like, I think this is very similar to 2003 to 2000 to 2003 with print designers, and probably very similar to accountants. But I wouldn't know about that. That's more, back in the early 1800s for Jeff Jarvis. But the thing is that I think there's 1500s. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we need to be accurate. But I think there is a reality here that. As much as we are benefiting from this, there is a downside, which is, I'm personally not hiring as many people.
Yeah.
Like, I have a team of people I've worked with for the last 20 years that I really like working with, and we just don't need as many people anymore. And there's some really scary aspects.
So I've got a question for you. Go ahead. You go up, Paris.
I assume it's going to be the same question. What are you going to do when you're the person whose job is eliminated? If this,
I'm going to be so happy. Are you serious? I've been trying to force myself out of a job for years. That's my dream. I just want to go and lay in a park and read books. Like, that's really what I want to do.
So do you believe in UBI? Is that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And all those people who are like, but what will humans do? It's like, bro, what do you mean? Have you been anywhere on a weekend? Do. Like, it's great. Like, it's wonderful.
Nobody likes their job.
Yeah. Someone recently said, I spend a lot of my time without working. I'm very lucky in that regard. And someone said, when are you planning to re-enter the workforce? And I was like, what are you talking about? I would never plan that. But I do think that there are some really scary aspects to this. And I do think we are underestimating the impacts of how this will work. And I think we're seeing a lot of founders like myself, big company CEOs, et cetera, who I was just talking to someone who is like, I want to know how to use this in my company. And I want you to work with my tech team to like help the tech team use this more. And I was like, yeah, but we're kind of having them dig their own grave. Like, it's kind of messed up. And so like we are not prepared for that. And so I've been thinking a lot about like, what does that mean and how does that work? At the same time, still gotta eat. So I'm over here trying to, hustling in the token mines, trying to build some cool company.
This is an age-old problem, though, as productivity improves. Yeah. People lose jobs. I mean, I
noticed something when I've been thinking about this a lot because of the waterfall stuff. When I got my first job in 2001, it was like a huge room full of these little, what are the cubicles? Just as far as I can see, with like tech people.
Yeah.
Engineers, designers.
Little skinny black ties and pocket protectors.
Exactly. I had to dress up every day. Yeah, exactly. And then that shrunk. By 2005, I was on a team of like 20 people. And then by 2007, it was 10, so on and so forth. So it's not like this started with AI.
No, this is what computers do in general, right?
I think
AI democratize it. Yeah. So I'm going to ask, I have a different question.
Not that it's a wonderful thing for the people who lose their jobs, but it's kind of, it's like, I don't know how you avoid it.
I teach or try to, and helping start a new program in technology, AI, and society, and wondering what young people should do. Advise either a university or its students who are interested in technology, who love it, and want to do things with it. What should they be doing?
I think just experimenting at this moment. There's something that I noticed, which is my brother actually. Dylan, I think he's Dylan, not Dylan, I don't remember. So he's a microblog as well. But he texted me one day and was just like, hey, I wrote a video game. And I was like, what do you mean you wrote a video game? You're not a programmer.
Last night.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just like, no, I just wrote a video game. And I was like, oh, that's new and unique information. And that is, I think, where we're at, where someone told me yesterday, this is the age of the idea guy. Yeah. All of those people who are like, I have an idea and I need a tech person. This is they're gonna live. They're gonna eat the now. But I think the people out there, there's some cool parts about this as well, which is the people out there who have the patience to dig in and experience it. You actually see one right there. That's a Ment, my friend Ment, who comes in and he hacks on this product that he has that he did not have 6 months ago. He's not a programmer. He's learning how to program. He's using Replit Agent. He's using V0. He's using all these things to build this stuff. He has he's doing it, and the point is that he's spending the time to do it. And so if I was going to talk to students today, I think I would just suggest, just try it out. Try it on, see how it feels. If it doesn't work, try it again. Read the Ethan Mollick book. I think his book is really good at kind of summarizing how to think about this. If you start out saying it's not going to work, it's of course not going to work. Mm-hmm. But if you try it, like build something weird, build a mobile app, build an iOS app. You've never heard that iOS is a thing? Great, try it. You can achieve almost anything with enough patience, and that's a limiting factor.
So I think that's the very exciting and also very terrifying thing about this time, that we are in a time of experimentation. Everything is changing so rapidly, and we don't know where it's going. You can't say with confidence, don't become a programmer. You can't say anything. But I think you're right, Harper. Become an experimenter. By the way, I got out my copy of Lyon's Commentary on Unix 6th edition. And in fact, the code comment, "You are not expected to understand this," is on line 2238. So, so close.
So close. Well, I mean, we can change the name of the company.
I think that might be the necessary next step.
Yeah.
It's a really good Easter egg.
You could get AI to do it for you. You don't have to do any of the work.
I could.
It says, if the new process paused because it was swapped out, set the stack level to the last call to save USSAV. That means the return, which is executed immediately after the call to RTU, actually returns from the last routine, which did the save you. You are not expected to understand this. And that's Unix, baby, right in a nutshell, right there.
Wait, what's your company's number again?
2389.
So close.
What is line 2389, Leo?
Oh, that's a good question. Line 2389 is blank.
That's why we chose it, because it's a white field.
Space.
It's a white field.
Yeah, we're ready to go. We're filling it in.
Harper, you are an idea guy. You never fail to inspire. You never fail to excite me with your enthusiasm for life. And I think you made a damn fine case for getting out there, experimenting. Go to Harper's blog and read these 2 posts to get started. Harper.blog. I really think there's a lot of meat in here, and there's also some great pictures, and you can use it to start your own journey, your own experimentation. It makes me want to, Harper, I'm so old. I wish I could start over again. I would love to be young right now and playing with this stuff. I think it's very, very exciting.
I like that. That's the thing you would do if you were young again. You know what I would like to do if I was young again is go inside and use a computer. Not enjoy the world.
No.
That would be boring.
I could do that when I'm old.
But here, I do think that it is worthwhile no matter what. Like, I have so many friends that are like, oh, I could never become a programmer. I think the exciting thing is you can just go to like Bolt or Lovable or any of these apps and just build the thing you've always wanted to build and see how it goes. And that's a big change to what we were doing before. Like, we didn't have that opportunity. You could not reasonably tell someone, just learn how to build a mobile app. That's an asinine thing to tell someone. Yeah. Now you could just be like, no, just build the mobile app. Like, it's easy to do so. And it really is easy. Now, will it scale to 1 billion users? Well, that seems like a problem that you'll figure out if you have that problem. Like, you'll figure out a solution.
It's an exciting and interesting time. Not necessarily, interesting times are not necessarily the best times.
Yes.
But it is interesting. You can't deny that.
It's uncomfortable, but good, I think.
Yeah. Harper, great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming on and exciting us with your ideas. I appreciate it. Harper Reed, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, it's Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little clip from our programming at twit.tv. For more, visit our website, twit.tv, or subscribe in your favorite podcast client. There's also a link somewhere down there.